Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we have back Dr. Robert Hoffman from the Anticancer Institute, and we have been going down a road of discussion about things to do, things not to do. We're talking about my case. We're talking about all things diet and cancer related. And Robert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, Joe. How are you?
Well, I'm a little compromised. This thing is starting to really get at me, and I'm kind of in a race of time right now. So I've been fasting really hard and just doing everything I can to keep it slowed down while we're trying to get some treatment. So we'll jump.
Okay, don't fast too much, Joe. You don't want to start breaking down your muscle protein, which is loaded with methionine.
I understand, and I'm balancing it. I'm doing like a 24-hour little flip back and forth.
Okay. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm just we just got to get to the finish line here.
Well,
So
we got to get that port implanted.
I know. So
Once we get that, we're in.
I agree. And in fact, the doctor said she'd hook me up as soon as they got it installed. So, well, let's back up to where we left off. So when we were talking last, I had this opportunity to communicate with my medical oncologist. You know, they're this big dental holdup and all of this nonsense that they can't treat me. And I was able to secure a conversation last week with or earlier this week with this doctor, and she gave me an opportunity to
Which
sort
was
of
a medical oncologist, right?
correct. Yes, from UCI. And previously, the radiation oncologist is calling me, bugging me. When are you going to get this dental work done? And I'm explaining to him everything I'm doing and how hard I am trying to get this thing done. We're finally down to one tooth, and I'm waiting for the appointment to get it yanked, but it doesn't matter. We're still moving forward. So I get this appointment. Monday, 3 o'clock comes around, and I was hoping to record it all and everything, but they had some technical glitch, and it didn't all work out. But I got to talk to her. And I laid out my case. I told her the sense of urgency that I have, and I told her that, I'm being completely compliant. And then I laid out and I said, listen, I'm working with a team of professionals, of other cancer patients, other physicians, and I've studied the standard of care. We've looked through plenty of published reports about neoadjuvant first-line chemo treatment, and I propose a 3-drug cocktail. And I laid out those 3 drugs, and I said, listen, I think if we can just approach this from a firefighter's point of view, we need to shrink this thing a little bit, at least, so that I can keep living. And while we're getting the rest of the stuff in line so that I can get the treatment you guys want. And I thought I was going to have to put up a big fight. I thought I was going to have to go in and start laying down cases. And she says, all right, let me think about that. And because of the guidance I got from you and some of the others, I laid out a solid plan. And she thought about the 3 drugs we talked about and what my plan was. And she says, I think that could work. And I said, I was kind of taken aback. I was expecting more of a fight than that. So I was all dug in with all my notes and everything. And I says, really? And she says, well, we need to get this thing. It's very aggressive. It's trying to move, and we need to stop it. And so I said, all right, well, what's that going to entail? And she says, I think we want to install a port because these are very toxic chemicals we're going to put in you, and they'll burn your veins out real fast, and you'll have problems later on down the line. I says, fine, do the port. And she says, then the other complication is now we have to order from the insurance to get it approved, because we've already got this other treatment approved. But because you've got a PPO insurance, it shouldn't be that complicated because we've already got a first-line treatment approved. So then she says, what? I says, well, anything you can do to expedite this, I'd be greatly appreciative of. I will make myself available. I'll cancel whatever needs to be canceled. And basically that was it. She agreed to move forward. And a couple of days later, I got a call and they said, well, we need to know your pharmacy because um, there's going to be some drugs you're going to have to take in concert with this. And I said, fine. I gave her my information. And here I'm waiting for this approval. So literally any day, any minute of any day now, I could get the call and head on down and get this thing started. But meanwhile, this thing has grown and it's really pushing on my throat. I feel like somebody's got their hand around my neck, squeezing on me a little bit, and it's hard to sleep. And that's really the worst of it all. You know, Robert, I've always considered sleep one of my strongest health pillars. And I've always slept good all my life. And now all of a sudden I'm, struggling to get 2, 3 hours of sleep at a time. So as we're moving forward, I thought to myself, well, the only best tools I have right now are fasting. And when I eat, I'm doubling up on my methionase so that I'm blocking everything out as I can. You brought up a valid point. You said, well, you got to watch out for fasting too hard because then you start going after your own muscles. And I agree because they'll pull methionine right out of your own muscles if they can. So what's your thoughts? I mean, this thing is really starting to squeeze on me.
Joe, I think we're good. When you make the caliper measurements, what are they?
It's grown. I mean, it's significantly grown. I stopped measuring because it's just pushing on my throat right now.
Okay, all right, it's growing, but it. I know it feels like choking, but it's not going to. The doctor, I think you have a very good doctor. She's getting everything lined up for you. I'm hoping we can start next week.
Yes.
But you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right.
Yeah, I'm counting on it.
And I think what you've done is a good example for people. You went and did your homework by studying, by talking to other patients, by talking to other people in the field. And you came up with a plan that makes a lot of sense and it works for you. And she agreed.
Absolutely.
You did all the good science. She understood that what you proposed has a basis in decades of clinical trials and based on the best science we know. So what you did is a really good example for everybody. Every cancer patient, you've got to be your own advocate if you can, and you've got to study as much as you can. It's your life. You don't study and you just rely on other people to take care about you. You're not going to get the best outcome necessarily. So, we just, the cancer patient who just sits back and does whatever the doctor says at the moment is not going to get the probability of a good outcome as the cancer patient like you who did fantastic amounts of homework every day, every Sunday coming on the cancer patient Zoom, talking with me, talking with other people, talking with Dr. Castro, and you came up with a plan. That took a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it's going to pay off. And I think it's a good example for other cancer patients. You just got to be really proactive.
Absolutely. And I have an appointment with Dr. Castro next Thursday, a week from today. I'm hoping that I'll be in the middle of a treatment and have to postpone that. And that'll
I don't think you should postpone it.
Well, no,
I think you should go.
No, I'm saying
because he's probably going to give you some other things to take in addition, as he's already discussed with you. I
totally agree.
That appointment with Dr. Castro is super valuable.
I agree. I'm not canceling it, but if they decide they're going to install my port on that day, I think I'll get the port.
Well, let's see. I think the main point is to get the port in, and then whenever you come in for your chemo, I think it can be flexible.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
what day is Dr. Castro?
It's the 10th, next Thursday.
I wouldn't miss that.
Oh, I'm not planning to. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to give you some good suggestions. So this is,
I
and
agree.
getting an appointment with him also took a lot of homework.
Oh, yes. And a little pulling strings. Thank you, Dr. Hoffman. Your word, I think, helped make that happen quicker because they weren't responding to me for a while.
Well, okay, but anyway, they did. And so
And they
you've
did
got a
blood work
really
already
great
too.
team of your UCI doctor
Hmm.
and Dr. Castro. You're like the president of a country or something. You've got a medical team. Um, uh, it's good, Joe. Hang in there.
Oh,
You're going to
yeah.
get started soon.
I'm not going anywhere. I got a spirit that'll take me wherever I got to go.
Yeah, I know it's not comfortable to have that thing, and yeah, your sleep gets interrupted. Join the crowd.
I hear you. I hear you.
Um,
I know I'm
um,
new to the club here.
yeah, um, you're doing good, Joe, and you've got good folks behind you now.
They're a great
Everything
team.
good. And you're a really great example of how important it is for the cancer patient, if possible. Not everybody can do it, and I understand that. But if the cancer patient can be proactive, do the homework, and it's a lot of homework, and I think the chance of a good outcome are increased.
You know what I even did? I went ahead and bit the bullet and got some of that Hominex food
Good.
supplement because if I'm fasting and I take that, it will allow.
You're really low methionine, and you're going
Yeah,
to be able to get some. The amino acids in that
right.
mix will help you make protein.
Yeah, so it's on
And
its way, and I'll begin taking that in while I'm doing more of a Gerson thing. I'm doing a little bit of green juice every day. Once a day, I'm taking some green juice, and
it can't hurt as long as
uh,
it's low in methionine.
oh yeah, yeah. I'm growing the vegetables. They're, Swiss chard and
Okay.
cabbage.
And I
Good
think
stuff.
Hominex is a good idea.
Yeah, I thought, I don't want to just be laying here lethargic. I know that moving around and being active is important to keep your oxygenation going and keep your lymph system moving. So, but you move around too much, you start burning too many calories, and you
There's a
start.
balance. You'll hit
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But I'm listening to my body and I'm working that way. I feel like that part of it's working well, and I'm maintaining an energy level. Dr. Hoffman, I've got a question, and I don't really know your history other than your scientific history and the papers you've written. But you've invested now your life and created a nonprofit, a business around helping people that are suffering from cancer. And in my experience, most people that are going to put their life work into cancer either have had cancer or have a loved one that has suffered from cancer. What makes this important to you?
Well, it was a number of things, I think. First of all, when I was young, I lost a lot, not my mom and dad, but I lost close family to cancer. It was
Okay.
very, when you're a young boy, uh, you're especially sensitive to losing your family members, and it was cancer every time. And that had a big impact on me. And then I did my PhD in basic science, and I learned a lot about genetics. It gave me a pretty good background. And one of my teachers was James D. Watson, Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA, and he encouraged me. He says, "Go into cancer research." And after I finished my PhD studies, and that had a really big influence on me. And at that time, President Nixon started the so-called war on cancer. So there was we're talking about the early 70s now. So he had a lot of, I think that was a lot of support, both with money and also just, the fact that the president was so involved with cancer was a really big thing. And that all made a lot of sense to me, was very encouraging to me. And I started studying the basic methionine metabolism, and that was boring for me. But then I read a couple papers where I saw that if the cancer cell is deprived of methionine, it dies. And if the normal cell can still live.
Mm-hmm.
That made a huge impression on me. And that's how that finally is how I got started. This is about 1973, 1974.
And the crazy thing about it all is, with the discovery like that back 50 years ago, you would think that this would just be a commonplace therapy. And yet doctors
Well,
don't know
Joe, actually, Dr. Sugimura's discovery at our National Cancer Institute in 1959, where he just removed different amino acids from the diets of rats with tumors, and he removed methionine, and that's what slowed the cancer the most. So we've known for 65 years that people on cancer should at least go on a low methionine diet. But that never permeated. It never permeated the received knowledge of cancer doctors or the opinion leaders of cancer research. And to this day, it's slowly starting to permeate. All these decades and decades later, some people come up and say, "Oh, it's a conspiracy. The pharmaceutical companies don't want you to get cured of cancer." That is absolutely not true. The pharmaceutical companies want to make money.
Yep.
And whatever it takes, they're going to make money.
That's
and the cancer researchers, most of them want to follow the opinion leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And the opinion leaders are mostly these molecular biologists, and their academic offsprings, which started off with the received idea that all cancers are caused by viruses, and that turned out to be 99.9% wrong. And then they shifted to cells, the genes in cells that are similar to genes in the viruses, called oncogenes. And that went on for 30, 40 years. That didn't work out. People still are enamored with the Warburg effect, that cancers need much more glucose than normal cells, and it turns out they need a little bit more. So, and that paradigm is still strong. So methionine dependence, now we know, which is methionine addiction, is slowly permeating after all these decades, but it's still the big, powerful opinion leaders who have such influence on grants and publishing in the high-powered journals. It hasn't permeated them very much, but it's starting to.
Okay.
And then I want to tell you, I might have said to you this before, and I'm sorry to be repetitive.
No, it's okay.
One of the greatest scientists ever was a fellow called Max Planck in Germany. He's born about 1857. He lived well into the 20th century. He invented quantum mechanics.
Right.
And somebody asked him, "How does science go forward?" You know what he said? One funeral at a time.
It's true, though.
It's true.
Yeah.
Read the book by Thomas Kuhn, Kuhn. The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. I recommend that book for everybody. And it shows how science goes forward, how there are paradigms that everybody follows. He called it normal science. And to get a breakthrough, to get out of those paradigms, probably Max Planck was mostly correct.
Nice.
So that's how it works. It's not a conspiracy. It's the same as, in all other, I think, areas of human life. You get opinion leaders, people follow them, and then you get a new generation of opinion leaders, people follow them. That's the way it is. So methionine addiction and using it as a target to help cancer patients is slowly getting off the ground after 66 years.
Would you think this just came to my mind, and I've been flipping in and
By
out.
the way, Joe, please recommend this to your podcast to get Kuhn's book. Get a used copy for a few bucks. It is so eye-opening.
I'm going to get a copy myself, and then I'm going to be quoting from it. So we'll jump right out. You know me, I take action. So,
yeah, for sure.
One of the things that, I'm always doing is I'm pivoting my course and trying to find the best way forward. And one of the reasons that I really like working with you and the rest of the group is that, it's very, very pragmatic and practical minded. And what happens when you get faced with a life threatening illness is you get clarity and you start to recognize things that are real and what's wasting your time a lot quicker, because you don't have the option to just sit around and waste time. And so the discussions we're having about why we think and what we're considering or not, or what's the evidence that backs something up, I think it's really important. And I recognize, I'm a real open-minded guy, and I've been all over the place with listening to people, and one by one I rule things out and choose things. So I'll keep repeating this, is how important it is to really use your thoughts, use your logic, look at the evidence, make decisions based on facts, not feelings and opinions, because there's so much of it.
That's right, based on fact. Joe, I have to give you a little warning. I'm almost out of juice.
It's okay. We should close down a little early. I'm trying to protect my throat, but one last question.
Sure.
What would you say about my thought about taking methionase even in a fasted state, just to clean my bloodstream out?
I think do it. And because even in the fasting state, the body makes its own methionine. The liver is a big methionine factory, and the cancer is making a lot of methionine.
Right.
A good part of that, most of that probably goes into the bloodstream, but we know that some of the some of the components of the bloodstream, like methionine, probably are re-entering the digestive system by what's called enterorecirculation. So I think you should have methionase on board all the time. Some of the people are taking it every 6 hours. I think, I can't say for sure, but I think that's a good idea. So definitely always have methionase on board.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Hoffman. And we're going to wrap up today, but it's always been a pleasure. And I want to thank all the listeners for supporting the show and welcome you to join the Sunday call, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And the link to the show will be in the show notes. We'll see you next time, Robert.
You bet, Joe. Always a great pleasure.
Another edition of the Healthy Living Podcast.
Yeah, you're a real inspiration.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm doing my best to be one for a good long while.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Okay, Joe. We were counting.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.